All right, took my contacts out, feeling better, still a little tired. So the thought processes aren't all lined up and sinking in and crunching out really well as like usual. But as you like have evidence already. So when we get some things in education where we're looking at things hierarchically, assessing evidence, all that, then these people who are PhDs in biology would be better able to assess what certainty is instead of having these misunderstandings. And they would not be misled by some mistaken philosophies of science and what science is. They could better think through things, like if someone says, as they believe, like the demarcation of science is like falsifiability, or they think that's the scientific method or something, but they know that's a bunch of nonsense. They'd stop to, they stop and they think, who is this person that came up with it? What do these people say? What are their influences? If they say the person who came up with this stuff says falsifiability, well, to know what false means, we need to know what true means. We can't know false without true. It makes no sense. We got to know something's true, then in contrast, there's a false. And that's how we normally come across things in actually learning, growing up. Evidence of the senses is a given. We start to get language. We learn people can lie or be wrong. We could be in error. There's the false in contrast to the given that we're used to, or actual true statements. Truth is the fundamental, not the false. We start with something, a given, not a nothing or a negative. Then we can get the concept of false. So to say you can test or falsify something, really you're saying that really means the more important thing is that you can see if something's related to other things we know into reality. And you go, this falsifiable stuff is nonsense. Really what matters is truth. And when these examples someone brings up about confirming, Karl Popper, falsifiability nonsense, or saying stuff confirms, well, what does it really mean to confirm? And what about in math? Math is a science. People prove things in science. You want to see if it's true. We do not falsify it. That is nonsense, irrelevant. When you have things build up on a solid foundation, in observation and reality, and you have your thinking build up, math is based on like observation and having certain methods. It is not a deductive science. It comes out of nowhere. There are inductive elements to it, I think. The idea that it's deductive comes from Plato, and just going to that, not really thinking through the issue very much. That needs to be done more, but people need to learn more what induction is, how we form concepts, and things like that. As some have done, and as I've learned a little bit from some other people. I haven't figured it out on my own, of course. But we, in math, know we derive answers and we prove they are true. We don't falsify them. Falsification does not demarcate a science. What demarcates a science is showing something's actually true, and something, a higher level proposition, can be derived step by step through the hierarchy back to the evidence of the senses. If you get that idea and get principles from how math works, you can see how other things work too. Then people could see if evidence actually confirms something or not, because what this stuff is, Karl Popper talks about, is just not really confirmation. It's making a claim. It's an arbitrary assertion, or seeing something in a certain way. So if we would look at getting actual scientific methods, what's the nature of a thing? Why is this the case? And applying them to how science works, these people would not have made that mistake about certainty or falsifiability. You know, the false, what is it? How do we know something's false? Because it's not true. There's a given that we know. What is that given that there's no getting around or under or behind or anything in terms of knowledge? The evidence of the senses. Experience, as Galileo and Newton and Marie Curie and Aristotle and others knew. We got that basic level that's a given, and then we can be correct or incorrect in our propositions. But when something like all lightning is electricity is known, it is confirmed. It is not attempt to falsify. You do an experiment to see if it's correct and to learn if it's right and to see how that idea connects to everything else we know. That is what demarcates science, not falsifiability. So we would ask why about falsification, see that truth is what matters. We would learn that connecting something to other things we know, that's one thing that shows if it's true, because everything should be interconnected. Then we'd know what a theory is and how it explains all these different things. You know, for, let's say, the heliocentric theory, there's a lot of things we've got to explain, like why, but for the naked eye, is there no parallax? If the Earth is moving, why don't we fly off? Why don't we feel a wind? When we throw a ball up, if the Earth is moving, why didn't the ball go behind? Some things like that. A lot of things are in need of explanation before the theory is known. And it's got to be connected to a lot of things like that. So when we know that theories are actually like that, we could apply that to this falsifiability stuff instead of accepting it without much or any understanding. You know, these people should be able to assess it, as I say, falsifiability versus truth. It's really a matter of connecting something to everything we know. And, you know, I'll get into some like Popper stuff in some other videos, but then we know more about certainty. Again, certainty in contrast to thinking something could be the case, but we're not sure yet, or knowing something is false. It takes an understanding of an assessment of evidence. So those are some things we need to give people in education and in the culture so they can do better at work. And so these PhDs in biology would not be making this same mistake about thinking they're some like young child knows what certainty is, or like a young child should even be considered and has any evidence to being certain about something, except for something on a very low level of abstraction. So bringing hierarchy and evidence into play in English, chemistry, physics, geometry, history would help a lot in other areas, and it would help someone know what science actually is, help people assess whether a 5-year-old is really relevant to thinking about what certainty is, and so on. So something we should bring into education, everyday life, into work. Peace.